No, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so how has this pandemic affected you personally?
Mm. Actually, it's not been that bad. Um, Working from home more now than before, but I had worked from home prior to the pandemic. The biggest effect it's had is not having any groups or events at my work, and that's been hard.
Hmm. I can
So,
imagine. Do you want to state your position at Mead Wildlife Area for me, please?
sure. My name is Pamela Rasick. I am the wildlife educator for the Wisconsin DNR at the Mead Wildlife Area Education and Visitor Center
Thank you.
in Millador.
Mhm. So, do you want to go into more detail of how the pandemic has affected your job at Mead or Mead overall?
Well, being a wildlife area was with a visitor center, and because of COVID, we had to shut the visitor center down to public. And we've been shut down since March 18th or so. The last time we had a group on the property was March 13th, actually Friday the 13th.
What a quinky day.
A
Today is
little
Friday the
coincidence.
13th.
Yeah, and today's Friday the 13th. So, I mean, the getting the word out that the property is still open, that visitors, people are enjoying out of doors more than ever before. So I can see people are using the property in that aspect, walking, hiking,
Mhm.
bird watching. Now with hunting seasons going on, our hunting sales, our fishing license for the DNR, trapping, all that stuff has increased big time.
Wonderful.
So that's good.
Hmm.
Um, what people were saying here with deer gun season coming up is if they hadn't been a hunter before, they may not be finding any guns or ammunition, if they're new to the sport. So,
Hmm.
you know, that's been a little bit of predicament, but
Hmm.
otherwise, I mean, every day that I was able to go out, once we were in bounce back phase 2, I was
Hmm.
able to go back out to the property 4 to 5 hours, 1 day a week. And I did that to keep up like with maps and visitor information. Um, and I'll bet you I could see at least 30 people there in that short amount of time almost every day, especially if it was a nice day. And
Wow.
with this exceptionally nice, seasonally warm weather that we were still having last
Hmm.
week,
Yeah, now there's
there's
snow on the
been
ground.
a lot of visitors there. So
Hmm.
I had to go in for just um, what I did was basic maintenance on the trails, the walking trails and stuff like that, mowing.
Okay. Yeah. Next
So,
question is, since the shutdown, have things improved, declined, or kind of stayed the same at Mead? So
oh,
since,
as
yeah,
far as,
the quarantine.
yeah, but as far as it's affected different areas differently. I mean, there should be, we had no school groups, we had none of our events. So
Hmm.
those big, large gatherings didn't happen.
Yeah.
But so that's the bad thing. A good note is people, family, small groups are enjoying the property
Hmm.
more so than probably if there wouldn't have been COVID. So we would like to figure out a way to tap into this new new interest, or I guess people have always been interested, they just didn't have the time because their lives were busy. Can we tap into this, and people, once this is all over and done, will they still appreciate the natural resources as much as what they're doing now because of the pandemic?
Yeah.
Is there a way to keep that goodwill going? I mean, the state parks within the DNR were crazily busy this summer, so it's good for the natural resources. I'm just hoping that once this is over, people will still appreciate it the ones that didn't and the ones that do now or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Now, how do you think the pandemic will affect your business future or affect Mead in the future?
I think people will be a little more conscientious of
Mm-hmm.
having the natural resources and that especially the wildlife area being free to the public. I think they're going to appreciate it more. I'm
Mm-hmm.
hoping that's what happens. Um, I'm hoping we get back on course with school groups,
Mm-hmm.
small visitor groups, you know, any of that kind of stuff. 'Cause we had a plate full of events planned for 2020 and nothing.
Yep.
And as far as being a bad note, how do you have some of these events that are hands-on outdoors virtually, you know?
Yeah.
And we're still trying to learn how to do some nature studies virtually. We've seen some and some are good and some not so good. And it's still a learning, there's a big learning curve out there for a video, how to edit, cut and paste video, you know, and put something together
Mm-hmm.
and make it interesting enough that people want to enjoy it, but it can't be long.
Yes.
People's time frame attention spans are short at the moment, and they always have been. And I think it's getting worse, you know, because
Yeah.
we do so much video, so much TikTok or whatever, something fast, you
Yes.
know. So we gotta
Mhm.
find our niche, I guess, here.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely makes it a little difficult.
Hmm.
How would you say Mead, being a local Wisconsin or state ran business, is affected differently than a federal, like the National Park Service business?
Mm. I don't think it's any different.
Okay.
Um, I don't know how the federal parks and stuff are ran. If there were more closed down, like I said, state parks, it took a long time before they were open to the public and for camping. And the property itself never shut down. It was the visitor center, because we had a visitor center, and then the staff had to wait before they could go back and do, you know, their field work and stuff. But they actually got back before I did. So in that sense, not a lot has changed. It's harder to do things, you know, meeting with contractors, public, the farmers and stuff like that. It's harder. And of course, not having the visitor center open, you know, the phone calls, everything had to get redirected. So it's harder, I guess. But hopefully, like I said, I'm hoping the people that ran into this problem will appreciate us more. And so I think there's going to be some benefits, and then there's still going to be caution, you know, how
Yeah,
people conduct themselves.
definitely. Is there anything else you want to say how 2020 has affected natural resources or affected you?
No, like I said, I'm hoping people learn to appreciate and, you know, because some of the things that are being done, you know, like with the global warming and things they've done because it's COVID, you know, we have had an increase in plastic usage, disposable masks, you know, the disposableness of our society has increased, which counteracts being, you know, global warming, climate change, preserving things, you know. So I don't know. Hopefully we'll get back on track.
Yeah, I hope
Um,
so.
the only other thing, it feels like I'm in a time warp because when I do go back into the center, we left. We just left. It was winter and that stuff is still there. And before we probably get the clear to kind of maybe open up again, it'll be a whole year has gone by. And that's really hard to grasp that,
Mhm.
you know, I lost a year.
Yeah,
And maybe more, as one of my bosses said. We may not be back till next summer. which
Wow.
is really hard to comprehend that that's
Hmm.
going to happen. So, I mean, all the groups, school groups and whatnot that canceled last spring, all rebooked for next spring. And I've got my fingers crossed that we can do it.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. Okay. Well, that's all the questions I have.
okay,
But thank you very much for talking with me.
no problem.
I'm gonna stop recording.